Not all dogs go to heaven, especially not those Helluva Boss Hellhounds born in the bowels of hell, it seems. But what's the story behind these tragic, misunderstood good boys and girls? Are they simply made to serve the gods and even the imps of the underworld? Or is there a darker, more powerful side to them? In this video, I'll be looking at those very doggos who call hell home, the Hellhounds, and we'll contrast them with their real-life folklore and pop culture counterparts to see just how they stack up on the dog pile, and what it can mean for the future lore of the show. In the Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss universe, hellhounds have an anthropomorphic, see also furry, dog-like appearance. And in the case of Loona, more specifically a gray wolf or even transformed werewolf with some humanoid features. Because of their ability to change into human form as needed, I imagine werewolves or lycans were probably a pretty powerful influence with regards to how the Helluva Hellhounds look. You've got your tiny toy varieties all the way up to the massive kind of mastiff types. Now, these citizens of hell have the unfortunate circumstance of occupying the bottom rung of the ladder of status here, a fate they share with imps. This very much makes them common folk, and they often end up in the same pitfall as the imps do, servitude of some sort, whether willing or otherwise. Awful as it is, that is the reality of hell, and it can only really improve if they're lucky enough to catch a break or fall in with the right denizens. Fortunately, Loona managed to do both. Kind of? I guess that depends on your opinion of good old Blitz. Loona is a hellhound who very much resembles a gray wolf, and whose name is a play on the moon's name in Latin, Luna. This of course ties her even closer to the notion of the Helluva Hellhounds having a bit of inspiration from folklore involving werewolves, where it is generally thought that during a full moon, some humans might morph into werebeasts and wreak havoc on villages and towns. Some may try to stick to the woods, away from humans, because it's believed that anyone who they bite will also become a werewolf, doomed to transform into a beast on the next full moon. In folklore, many werewolves are susceptible to silver bullets, and the Helluva Hellhounds have a weakness to what seems to be angelic fire. When fighting the cherubs, newly outfitted in mech suits, Loona gets hit and seems to be forced to transform into her human shape. After a while, she is able to reshape herself into hound form. Now, wolves in real life howl at the moon when it's high in the sky, which is both haunting and eerie. Naturally, werewolves or lycans stem from this, as the moon is tied to their supernatural ability to transform from human to wolf. The latter, wolf form, often takes a similar anthro appearance to what we see here in the Helluvaverse, though maybe a bit less animated. Perhaps it's a bit comedic, but Loona is in a way a reverse lycan in that she can transform into a human state to blend in better while doing jobs on Earth. Speaking of Earth, there's also the furry community that we should probably mention due to Loona's appearance sharing a lot of similarities with some fursonas. But I think Blitz covered the rest. This show absolutely knows who's watching, and they really dove into it in Season 2, Episode 8, with the Dorks agent's full Loona fursona suit. I love that he tried to wear it into hell. Imagine real Loona fighting her fursona. Wild. Anyway, yes, the show keeps on point with this gag. Antisocial and pretty cynical, Loona is going through every angsty feeling all at once. Though we don't know everything about what happened to her in her younger years, we do know that her path ultimately landed her at an adoption agency where she had been overlooked, possibly due to the fact that she's a hellhound, or more likely, the fact that she was nearly 18 years old by canine or mortal reckoning, I'm not sure, but with the chip on her shoulder. Regardless, her fate was sealed because along came Blitz, imp entrepreneur extraordinaire who decided it was Loona who he was going to adopt as his own. Though saying their relationship is strained would probably be putting it nicely, deep down Loona does care for her adopted father. Regardless of his antics, it wouldn't be a stretch to say that the fact that they're together has improved her lot in life as well. There are, of course, other hellhounds around the Helluvaverse. Vortex comes to mind, especially since he seems to be in the same sort of business as Loona, acting as the muscle for someone else. Like was mentioned earlier, hellhounds generally are found in positions of service not unlike imps. This seems very common, if not possibly universal. Loona stands out among them since her occupation is within a family business as opposed to being a job. Even Beelzebub has some hound qualities despite not actually being a hellhound. She's a much higher order of demon, being one of the 7 deadly sins. But where did the idea of hellhounds spring from originally? Well, actually, there's a few different places we can look, and these particular examples tie in with the occupations that we've seen hellhounds hold in Helluva Boss so far, those of the protector and the killer, or a mixture thereof. First up, let's take a small step back into ancient Greece. You know where this is going, to the underworld. Here, Cerberus was a mighty creature with 3 fierce heads in the stories of legend, and with that in mind, times 3, is one of the mightiest hellhounds in all of, well, any lore. Legend says that Cerberus was the faithful hound of Hades himself, the god of the underworld. Cerberus was quite literally the guard dog of Hades, both the place and the god. Any would-be trespasser into the depths below would need to get past Cerberus in order to proceed through the gates of the underworld, which was not an easy task. Cerberus's duty was to keep the living from entering Hades and to prevent the dead from leaving, a job that this monstrous three-headed dog of myth was quite good at. So good, in fact, that it took the mighty hero, Hercules himself, to best him. In Helluva Boss, we see both Loona and Tex kind of fit into the roles of protecting and killing, each to a varying degree. Loona so far has been used as goth bait, but when it comes down to a fight, she's very loyal about protecting those she cares about, when she can be bothered. Tex, for instance, is very much the bodyguard of Arasaka Mayday. This is a job I'm sure he even performs in his personal life, though I'm inclined to believe his lady Beelzebub probably doesn't need protecting, being as powerful as she is. The Helluvaverse hounds have an extremely keen supernatural ability to track by scent, unless it's heavily obscured. This power is a huge asset in detecting threats. They can also shapeshift, which is quite handy. Hellhounds occupying a sort of defensive position can be seen in other pop culture sources as well, such as Good Omens, for instance. In this series, the literal Antichrist is provided with Hell's most dangerous hound, solely to act as his guardian. This child is meant to influence the hound into a form of his liking, which all of Hell expects to be the most fearsome and dangerous dog beast ever to exist, but which in this case actually ends up turning the situation on its head. Initially, this demonic Great Dane is quite fearsome to behold, but due to everything ineffable about Good Omens, the kid was never really molded by Hell. He's still powerful, just not hungrily evil, and still has the power to name and thereby shape the dog, in this case, shapeshifting the menacing muscled mass into a short, sweet pup simply named Dog. Unless they're hit by angelic fire, it seems that forces a temporary human form shift, Vortex and Loona both fortunately seem to have a bit more governance over their abilities than poor Dog did, being at the mercy of some kid, and so they can use their ability more effectively. But protection isn't the only side of the coin here, now is it? If we look at an entirely different line of myth, we can find Fenrir from Old Norse stories of Ragnarok. Fenrir, the giant wolf son of the god of mischief, Loki, was foretold to be among those who would set the world ablaze. This mighty hound even bit off the hand of Tyr, the Norse god of war, and was prophesied to do battle with Odin himself during Ragnarok, killing the king of the gods. We can see a glimpse of this in this poem, which reads, "Then is fulfilled Hlin's second sorrow, when Odin goes to fight the wolf, and Beli's slayer bright against Sutur. Then shall Frigg's sweet friend fall." Wolves are carnivores, so hunting and killing are deeply ingrained within them. We can see this trait within Loona as well, even just going off of that crazy sense of smell she has. In terms of hunting, she can sniff even a name on a piece of paper, something that normally wouldn't carry a scent, and be able to locate her target. There are similar examples of this type of ability in pop culture with regard to hellhounds. One that stands out in particular is the series Supernatural, where hellhounds are used by demons to retrieve souls of those they've made deals with. These contracts are more magical than they are physical, and it would seem that the hounds just innately know where their target is regardless of the distance. Where we didn't particularly see any ceiling to the ability of those particular hounds, there does seem to be a limit in the Helluvaverse. This was something we saw while Loona was trying to track down Stolas' daughter Octavia. The heavily polluted air of Los Angeles managed to mask Octavia's scent and make things a mite bit more difficult for our hellhound hero. Good thing she's good at deduction, dear Watson, and social media. Scent and logic are powerful traits, but add in shapeshifting and wow, do we have a lethal combination. If we look elsewhere in folklore, we can find the story of Faust by Goethe, wherein we see a demon named Mephistopheles appearing as a hellhound himself, a black poodle to be precise. Appearing as something friendlier could let one get much closer to a target, which would undoubtedly be useful for Loona when she takes on a job for Imp. You know, like that time Blitz had her become a thirst trap for mortals during their spring break bet. But appearances can also have the opposite effect, fear instead of comfort, and we can see that with a bit more lore, namely black dogs. If you meet the black dog once, it shall be for joy. If twice, it shall be for sorrow, and the third time shall bring death. This ominous quote comes from one W.H.C. Pynchon, published within the pages of the Connecticut Quarterly in 1898. This Gothic story was written and intended to be read as fiction, but over the years has essentially become a legend for the state. The idea that this apparition could bring death simply by being present and seen on 3 separate occasions is absolutely terrifying. Grim, if you will. This notion of a phantom hound causing death through its mere presence by fear or other means has taken on a few different forms over the years, including a story featuring Sherlock Holmes that you may have heard of, The Hound of the Baskervilles. The story begins with a man by the name of Dr. James Mortimer requesting aid from Sherlock Holmes for a family matter, a curse. During the English Civil War, one Sir Hugo Baskerville kidnapped the daughter of a farmer but was unable to keep her contained. The girl escaped, and the legend states that Hugo made a deal with the devil in order to get her back. Eventually, Hugo's friends found the girl's body and believed the cause of death to be pure terror. They also found that Hugo himself had perished and had apparently been killed by a demonic hound. Sherlock heard that this hellhound was set to haunt the Baskerville family up to this day, ending the lives of many would-be heirs. Ultimately, Holmes and Watson uncover a less than supernatural plot and unravel the entire mystery. But it is interesting to see how a folktale can just take on a life of its own and evolve in so many different ways. Like, even today, there's a black dog tale from modern truckers. It is said that if you see a red-eyed black dog in your peripheral vision while driving on the road, you should quickly consider pulling over, as it's a portent of a wreck being imminent. Ignore at your own peril. This kind of makes me wonder if any of these other tales of supernatural hounds will lead to more abilities for the Hellhounds in the Helluvaverse. Their position in the Society of Hell seems pretty low, so it could be kind of interesting to see something new enter the equation. I mean, Loona does have mostly red eyes. Maybe a death stare is in her future. I mean, beyond her current angsty one, she's got that locked down. Right now, the two hounds we know the most about, Loona and Vortex, seem to owe a good portion of their current status to who they know, or are otherwise related to. But there's a whole host of hounds too, and their own social hierarchy among them. Again, probably related to who they work with. Loona's adoption by Blitz was a huge turning point in her life, and I can't help but think that Tex working for Verosica and getting with Beelzebub had a similar or perhaps greater effect on his status, B being one of these 7 deadly sins after all. Looking up from their position at the bottom of the barrel and contrasting it to their powerful folklore, I wonder how much longer they'll stay there, especially because the theme of the show so far has been to shake up the established hierarchy. This shift will be interesting to watch, especially Loona as she grows with her adoptive father and the family business. Maybe she'll even take on a more active role in IMP as she comes to terms with her relationship with Blitz. Or maybe not, she's kind of got her own thing going. And staying true to your own ideals and passions in our rapidly changing world is more important than ever. What if you could have a career that not only honors these, but also makes a positive social impact as well? Today's sponsor, 80,000 Hours, is a nonprofit that does just that. The name comes from the number of hours in an average career. 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, for 40 years. That's a lot of time, and it means that your career is probably your biggest opportunity to have an impact. Whether you're currently studying for a specific career or are lost in the options, 80,000 Hours not only has over a decade of research and serious career advice based on that research, but also has actual job listings that do good for our world. They also offer in-depth articles and podcasts about pressing matters facing us all, like breaking artificial intelligence down into its good and bad parts for a hopeful future. Their website is a wealth of knowledge, but everything they provide is free, forever, because they are a nonprofit. Their only aim is to help solve global problems by helping people find the most impactful careers they can. If this piques your curiosity, get a free copy of their in-depth career guide sent to your inbox. Just sign up at 80,000hours.org/abitfrank. You can also join their newsletter for up-to-date topics and trends. To get started planning a career that works on one of the world's most pressing problems, sign up now at 80,000hours.org/abitfrank. Thank you for supporting the channel by checking them out. And what do you think of the lore surrounding these hounds of hell, both in the Helluvaverse and in our own history? How do you think they'll impact the future of the show? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And subscribe so you won't miss the next video, Cooking in the Cauldron, right now. Thanks for watching, stay spooky!